In the last year, the retro handheld scene has had some amazing new handhelds release, especially in the super budget range, and I'm going to be considering that under $35. So here I'm going to showcase my favorite retro handhelds under $35. If you have any different ideas, leave a comment down below, and if you're interested in buying any of these handhelds, I'll put all the links down below in the description to them. There'll be affiliate links that come at no extra cost to you to use, but help support the channel and make it so I'm able to make more videos like this. So first off, I'm going to start with the most cheap handheld, that being the DataFrog SF2000. You might see it sold sometimes as a different brand name or just the SF2000, but it's all going to be the same thing. So this handheld comes in at about $20. Sometimes you could find it for maybe as low as $18 or on sale even a bit lower or upwards of $22, depending on some price fluctuations where you're buying it, etc, etc. But I would say generally $20 is a good price to put this thing at. So first we have the performance of this. It's not super great, as you can probably guess by the price tag. Being the cheapest handheld on this list, it's the least powerful. It can handle a lot of low-end stuff really well. For example, NES, Genesis, Game Boy Color, stuff like this. But when you get into Game Boy Advance and SNES, some problems become more evident. You can see that we do have slowdown in quite a few Game Boy Advance games and SNES games. On the upper range of these systems, you will have a large chunk of non-playable games, unfortunately, or at least games that perform very, very poorly. But if you're not interested in these consoles, I think the SF2000 is a good buy. You can look at a handheld like this like an introduction to the hobby. You're not sure if you want to spend more money on a handheld, so you want to see if you'll get any use out of it. This could be a good introduction for you. It's not super powerful, but it can do quite a bit, especially if you like playing, like I said, NES or Genesis or something low end. The controls on it are okay. The D-pad is clearly modeled after an SNES D-pad. The whole handheld is actually, and it's not super good. The pivot's not really there too much, and yeah, I don't love the D-pad, but it's usable the vast majority of the time. And then we have our buttons. The buttons are fine. There have been some complaints, like when you push it in, it becomes kind of flat, more flush with the handheld itself. Some people don't like that feeling. I don't really care that much, but that is a complaint that some have brought up. And we have our shoulder buttons up here, which are perfectly fine, no complaints there. One thing that's worth noting is that there are some concerns about the safety with the battery. I'm not going to speak about this too much because I really don't know much about it. I'll put a link down below in the description if you want to read more on this, but basically the gist of the issue is this uses an 18650 battery, and the SF2000 lacks a feature that prevents the battery from draining beyond how much it safely should. So actually, if you leave it on, forget about it, it's going to drain down and even keep draining past a certain amount that is considered safe, and then when you recharge it, there could be some damage that then increases risk of a fire or something like this. So make sure if you do buy this, you don't leave it on and let it drain too much like this, or you can actually, from what I understand, do some more research on this independently. I'm not an expert. You can buy an appropriate protected 18650 battery, which actually has a safety mechanism in it that prevents this from happening. It's supposed to be in the handheld, but I don't know if they cut corners or what. But yeah, there are ways to do that safely, but maybe that would even offset the cost of having this thing so cheap. So that's a consideration if you want to buy this. I will say also one more thing on the SF2000. There's a tool out there called Tadpole, which is necessary if you want to change ROMs. It's a PC program you can download for free. You can also do cool things with it, like change the music, change themes, download something called Multicore, which gives you better emulators. So there are some options of customization which you don't get for most extremely budget handhelds like the SF2000. All in all, I find this an interesting handheld. Definitely not the best on the list, but in this cheap $20 price range, there's really very, very little out there that's actually worth mentioning, and I think the SF2000 is the best in that range. So next up we have the Miyoo A30, which actually just came out a few months back, and originally it was actually significantly more expensive than it is now. You can buy this on AliExpress regularly for about $30. Maybe about a month and a half ago I got it for $28, and you can still regularly find it for that amount, sometimes maybe $32, $33, but just generally in that range of $30. So the A30, you'll notice, is significantly more powerful than the SF2000. You can handle on the A30 all Game Boy Advance, you can handle all SNES, and you'll need to use overclocking, but it can handle pretty much all of the PlayStation 1's library, which is really nice if you like PS1. There's absolutely no way the SF2000 can handle that, but on the A30 we have that, and we actually do have an analog stick on here, which is nice for more 3D games, and I actually find the analog stick to feel pretty nice. So speaking of the controls, all the buttons on here actually feel really good. There have been some complaints about the D-pad where people have said it's very easy to hit accidental diagonals. I would say yeah, it is easier than I would like to hit accidental diagonals. The D-pad isn't amazing, but it's still usable the vast majority of the time, and a lot of people really are turning around on the A30. Originally it was receiving pretty negative reviews, but especially now there's more custom firmware options, which do actually iron out some bugs in the stock software and make it actually perform better. So this technically can handle some N64, some Dreamcast, and some PSP, but they're not super amazing. Especially on the stock software, they're really not good, and I wouldn't recommend it for these. Maybe the few games that you might be able to run on here are okay and can be looked at as an added bonus. And with a custom firmware or modified stock software like Spruce, for example, you can get slightly improved performance, but still, I wouldn't recommend this handheld for any of these three consoles. You can play a lot of DS on this handheld, for example, especially with frame skip, but I would say generally, I would recommend this handheld for PS1 and under. So last but not least, we have the R36S. Definitely the most powerful handheld on this list. It comes in at about $35. Again, on sale you can find it sometimes for $30 or so, and maybe you might only be able to find it for like $36 sometimes, but I would say usually I can see it for $34, $35 in AliExpress as its normal price. And it comes equipped with an RK3326, which is often actually found in more expensive handhelds that might be around $50 or so. You actually do get a really good value for your money here. The R36S can handle everything that previous handhelds could, everything up to the PS1, and actually on PS1 you can play it at 2x resolution on a lot of games, which definitely you couldn't on the A30, so if you want a better looking experience, you can do that quite a bit here. And even when it comes to N64 and Dreamcast and PSP, it certainly has not mastered all these systems, but it's noticeably better than the A30 at it. You can play a decent amount of N64 games, and you do have two analog sticks here, which is nice for that. It can play some Dreamcast. You may have to lower the resolution, which is the same case on the A30, but you can get okay performance on a decent amount of Dreamcast games, and then the lower end PSP games work pretty good on here as well. Again, you should not expect to be able to play all these consoles games on here, these three I just mentioned, but a decent amount of them can. And again, looking at them as an added bonus, I think they're really good on the R36S for that. And when it comes to the controls, there have actually been some updates from when it originally released. I have the OG model here, which had notoriously stiff buttons, kind of a stiff D-pad, but as time has gone on, there have been revisions, and the controls are a little bit better now. Generally speaking, in this price range, you should not expect amazing controls. These are all usable that I mentioned here. I would say all of them uniquely have different strengths and weaknesses when it comes to the controls, but those on the R36S are usable at least. So these are my favorite handhelds in this price range. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any others that I didn't mention in the video that you do like. I will say that if you want to spend an extra $10, $15, $20, you can get something that is better in terms of controls, build quality, even in terms of power a little bit, but especially where these all fall short, especially in Dreamcast, N64, PSP, you really have to pay around $100 to get a handheld that has mastered all of these, maybe looking at the Retroid Pocket 2S for example. So a lot of money won't take you that much further than you might think if you're new to the handheld scene. These handhelds are a really good value for the money, and I'm really interested to see what we'll see going forward, maybe in 2025 and 2026, what we can get for $35 or under $35. And I'll make one note, since I bet this video will be watched by a lot of people who are newer to the hobby, it's generally good safety to use the charger that comes with your handheld and not to plug it into a fast charging brick or to use a USB-C to USB-C cable. I always just charge my handhelds using the included charger and then plugging that into my PC, or at least a similar charger that's not going to be drawing too much power or anything like this, because often issues can arise using the wrong charger, and to avoid any fire or just breaking your handheld, I would like to avoid that as much as possible and always supervise it when you're charging. So that's just some basic advice, nothing comprehensive, but I just want to say that if you're new to the hobby. And if you do decide to buy any of these handhelds, I'll put a link down below in the description to buy them. There'll be affiliate links, they come at no extra cost to you, but they help support the channel. So if you want to buy them, check them out down below in the description. And if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.